Hello everybody and welcome to the 2021.2 release video. In this session today we'll be taking a casual stroll through all the fantastic features that have been added to both Unify and Engage. As we walk, I'll be busy pointing out all the new exciting features along the way, whilst discussing the new functionality that has been made to both platforms. I'll also be providing live demos to really show off the changing and constantly improving product landscape. Of course, if you want to know more about any of these new features, or just want to see a deeper dive into their functionality, then don't hesitate in getting in touch with your Customer Success Manager. My name's Brendan Hobbs and I'm the Training and Education Director here at BlueVenn, and I'll be your tour guide for this short adventure. So let's embark on the first leg of our journey by looking at all the changes to Engage. There are quite a few useful additions to the platform in this release, so let's look at each of them in turn. Let's kick things off by looking at some improvements to the priority matrix functionality. If you're not familiar with this feature, priority matrices allow you to assign promotions to specified groups based on their eligibility and suitability. This is a really neat way of ensuring your contacts receive the most appropriate deals when several offers are on the table. Here is an example of one I prepared earlier. I have a number of offers here and some groups of individuals who are split along the lines of spending amounts. The new functionality can be found here in these two tabs, Totals and Segments. The Totals tab will display the maximum number of records available when combining the criteria and segment. And the Segments tab will allow you to select a segment and view the breakdown of records by priority for a single segment. Now let's have a look at a quick change that has been made to the object creation screen. If I click the Add button now, you can see a new filter box has now been added. So gone are the days of having to click through all the different menus. I can now simply start typing what I want in here. So if I want to create a new model, I can just type that and get the appropriate results. Or maybe I want to put together a new Venn diagram. Again, I can just type that in. Moving on, a brand new report has been introduced which will allow you to see the full status of scheduled or completed tasks within your system. Often if you're a busy marketeer, you can have multiple tasks running or scheduled to run at different times, and this can be difficult to maintain your focus on, so we've got your backs with this handy new report. To access it, we need to open the report menu, and we can see it here. It's called Task Run Report. When visiting this screen for the first time, all you will see are these messages informing you that there are no tasks to report on. And this is because we've not configured our report yet. So let's do that now and show this error message who's in charge here. First off, users can specify the appropriate date range, and there are a number of options, all quite typical of what you would find elsewhere in the system. I'm actually going to choose the rolling 30 days option. We can then choose the relevant statuses and the associated object types. I'm interested in stuff that is currently running, and also what has completed successfully or what has failed. The object types listed here under tasks can be broken down to allow a finer level of detail. I'm going to select expressions, pivots and selections. Plus campaigns. And again, here I can drill down even further. Now, if I go to the hamburger menu, I'll see all the normal options presented here. So I'm going to run the report. And here you can see a task list of all the tasks that match my criteria. I can dig a little deeper if I wish by clicking on an item, like this completed campaign, so I can see a greater level of detail. The result can also be displayed in two other forms. We're currently in the task list, but you can also see a Gantt view and a combined view. One thing to point out here is that the task list view is the only one that allows items to be expanded for additional details, but only displays events in the past. The Gantt view, however, allows you to see tasks that are scheduled in the future as you can see here. Next, we have some enhancements to the notification side of things. It's now possible to send additional task notifications to chosen Engage accounts via email or SMS or both. For example, if I locate the object I wish to send out notifications on, like this campaign here, if I click the right-hand mouse button and select Share With from the resulting menu displayed here, I can now select notifications and I will be presented with a list of actions, which all relate to a campaign. If I want to notify someone when the campaign runs successfully, I can click the small button that appears next to the executor in the success column. The same applies to failures as well, by the way. I now have the new ability to select email or SMS, if that's configured on your account. This means as well as receiving a notification within Engage, I will receive an email, if of course I'm the executor of the campaign. But what if I need to inform others of my amazingly successful campaign run? Well, I can add further contacts to this backslapping list. By clicking the Add button here, I can select to notify a group, if a group email will exist for them, or I can choose further individuals, like my colleague Daniel T, for example. I can then select the email option here if I wish. But the fun doesn't stop here though. If there are others within your organisation that might benefit from this notification, but they aren't lucky enough to have an Engage login, you can still configure notifications to be sent out externally. This is done via the Tools page under the Security subsection here. You can then click the hamburger menu to add the person. Once added, you can then choose to send notifications to these accounts. One point of note though, remember that these external accounts will never have the ability to access Engage. This is only to keep them informed of success or failures of any configured activities. Also, depending on the nature of the notification, the information sent may be different. For selection exports, there are some additional points of information included, whereas if it concerns a campaign, then the notification will be purely to tell you of its success. The plan is to add more detailed information in future releases. Another new type of notification has also been added. This particular one though will warn users if they attempt to delete items that are currently used elsewhere. So for example, if I attempt to delete this selection here, I will receive the following message. This is happening because this particular selection is acting as the audience field for this loyalty campaign detailed here. Note the presence of this overwrite dependencies checkbox, so it is possible to override this, but obviously we really don't recommend it. If you do go ahead and override, this choice is actually event logged. Now, if I navigate to this campaign, if I right hand click and choose properties, I can now view the first level on dependency information here, and you can see my selection listed. Next, we have the all-new like-in function, which may sound like some natural fuzzy green moss, but this is in fact a really cool way of reducing the complexity of search for multiple strings. Historically, if you wanted to search for many strings in a case-insensitive way, you'd have to put some pretty long-winded syntax into your selection, like this one here. But the all-new like-in function has made this process so much easier, because now to get the same results, I can simply type in the following. Next, we've added some simple prioritization options on the dedupe step found within campaigns. So, if we take a look at this example I've prepared earlier, I have a dedupe step added, but as this message is telling me here, it is not configured correctly. So, if I click on it, you will see the dedupe field drop down as well as the various options here. This is all existing functionality, of course, but what is new surrounds these prioritization settings found here. So for this example, I'm looking to dedupe on the household key, which will effectively give me one contact per address. But now that I've set these options here, it will choose the contact who is the highest income earner, if there are several to pick from. This is such a simple change, but the implications of which are pretty powerful. And we are currently looking at improving this further in later releases, so stay tuned. And with that, this brings our walk through all the improvements to Engage to an end. So let's now hot foot over to the world of Unify, where the landscape may be different, but the scenery is just as cool. As ever, the Unify team has been working really hard on bringing in a number of improvements and fixes to the platform, so let's take a stroll through each one of them now. Let's kick things off with some changes to the Experian Batch Web Service integration. The keen-brained amongst you may remember that we've always had an Experian Batch Web Service available. This ran address verification and cleansing services, which ran against the Experian database. This, however, only included the United Kingdom. So, on the back of a recent client request, we have rewritten the service so it fully utilises the Experian Web Services. This has taken some special config components to be included, like the Experian user ID and password. These would all come from an active Experian account. So, if this is something of interest to you, you will need to have an Experian account licensed to your organisation. This information can be added into the system configuration, which will then allow the system to go out into the world and retrieve the correct data and perform cleansing and verification functions outside of the UK. It actually covers around 150 countries, which is pretty impressive stuff. I could now list all the 150, but I don't think it will make for a very interesting listen. Anyway, due to this change, there have also been some impressive performance increases. When using the previous data services version, the system was taking about 3.5 hours to process 1 million records. But now, if you're running UK only, you can process 1 million records in under 10 minutes. Your productivity will no doubt soar as a result of this time saving. Christmas bonus, here we come. A small change has been made regarding subject access requests that could have a huge impact on your data. To look at this, we're going to check out this person record. If we go to profile, we can see that there is this one profile item that's been created. It has the header of person characteristics, and it comes complete with the question element of hair colour. So if I now go into profile administration and attempt to edit this by clicking here, we can see all the normal editable fields. But what's this? A new checkbox. That's right, we now have a neat new optional function called SAR exclusion. And SAR of course stands for Subject Access Request. The default resting state for this checkbox is off, or in other words, much like a dog who's just rolled in flea powder, it is unticked. This will mean that if I was to now run a subject access report, this profile header will appear. Now, and I'm sure you've already guessed where I'm going with this, if I was to tick the box and repeat, you can see that this object has now been omitted from the report. Of course, with this feature comes a warning. You will need to be very careful how this is used. If you want to use this to hide an inconsequential field like an internal ID or something equally benign, then that's fine. But, and I'm sure I don't really need to say this, it shouldn't be used to mask data elements that most definitely belong to the subject. So in other words, this is not a mechanism for hiding lawfully requested information. Okay, moving on. If I can now ask you to cast your minds back through the mists of time to the 2021.1 release, then you may well remember me talking about the new import-export functionality surrounding Profile. Well, these exact same functions are back, but this time it surrounds ETL templates. If we go to the data import screen, we now have two additional buttons added here. On clicking the export button, you'll be shown this handy panel which contains all the templates you currently have set up, and you can hit the export button next to the template you'd like to export. Now, on opening our newly created saved file, we get presented with this wonderfully huge XML file, which is simply crammed with lots and lots of information, basically everything that controls the template. This function is particularly useful if you end up creating a really cool and quite brilliant template in, say, a staging or UAT environment, and you now want to whisk it away into production. You can then, of course, import the file by making use of the new import button found again within the same data import screen. This will then allow you to locate your XML file, and you're done. Next, we'll move on to some connector news. Our current Engage connector only covers people and transaction detail, so we've now added the ability to cover sites, companies, and organizations. So when you now go into the API part of Unify, you can now select the different objects that you want to push across to the external Engage table. There is also now the ability to configure the triggers to suit, which will allow you to trigger the API based on the creation of those as well. We've also made some improvements to the grids, which will help you when you're searching and sorting your data. The first change revolves around the Enter button now being used as the default execution key. Now this sounds very dramatic, but is actually a very simple but yet effective change. Now if I go to the People search and type something in the search box, instead of having to grab my mouse to select the search button, I can now just hit the Enter button and the search is executed. We've also tweaked the Auto Search facility. By default, the drop-down found here is always blank. This is the same for site and company search. Now if I select one of the options here, the screen will automatically search, refresh, and populate accordingly with the correct set of results. Also, you can now apply column sorting, as all the column headers here are clickable. So you can quickly sort your results by clicking once for ascending or twice for descending. This is invaluable if you have a Mr. Aardvark and Mrs. Xylophone in your records and you need to quickly jump between them. And with that, this brings us to the end of this release presentation. Hopefully this has whetted your appetite sufficiently for all these exciting new features. I know I'm pretty pumped and I'm not even a proper end user. Anyway, if you have any further questions or would like to know more about what's been covered, then don't hesitate in getting in contact with your customer success manager. Many thanks for watching. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day and hopefully I'll see you on the next one.